Hello there, and welcome to Heyman Nature. This is another crossover episode with the great Bob Murphy. And since we recorded this on January 20th, the day Trump is sworn into office as president, it seemed like it'd only be fitting that we talk about all things germane to Trump's incoming presidency, the executive orders he signed coming in, the pardons issued by Biden on the way out, and a whole lot on the hopeful pardoning of one Ross Ulbricht. By the time you're hearing this, that will either have happened or not. So here's hoping that Trump freed Ross, as my sign says right here, for those of you on the video. Anyway, this is a fun conversation. We had a lot of laughs and talked about a lot of very interesting things. So I hope you enjoy.
Heyman Nature, a journey in search of a peaceful and prosperous society with human nature as a guide. Led by your host, Adam Heyman.
Hi, Bob.
Hello, Adam. Now we're on a first-name basis.
Yeah, our relationship is really starting to deepen and strengthen. This could be going somewhere.
Speaking of which, do you ever, on your thing, my kids watch a lot of YouTube stuff, so I see the ads. It's the one where the lady says to the guy, "Are you ready to take our relationship to the next level?" But it's like a frequent traveler bonus plan or something from some company. And he's a total cuck. He's like, "Yeah." And then, anyway,
Fortunately,
I don't
my
care for the
algorithm
video.
is different than both yours and your children's.
Okay.
So, something weird happened today. Literal Hitler just got sworn in as president of the United States. Literally a few hours ago, as we record this today on the 21st.
Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff happening. So yes, just to be clear, folks, did you say on the 21st?
Yeah, but I'm really stupid. I mean, of course, the 20th.
Okay, because I mean that will matter.
The 21st will matter, as we'll get to a little bit later.
Yeah. So to be clear,
my
folks,
brain is ahead
yeah,
of
Adam
schedule.
and I are recording this Monday evening, January 20th, and so we have some stuff that's in the can, but other things that by the time you hear this will be old news. We technically don't know yet.
Exactly. Before we get started with the fun stuff, I'm kind of curious. I always thought there was a significantly non-zero chance that Trump still was just never going to get seated based on the array of powerful forces lined up against him. Do you have any thoughts about why it seems like we think of the deep state and the regime and this loose cabal of oligarchs, as being so powerful, and I mean, they didn't seem to put up much of a fight to have this guy take power again.
I don't have a solid theory. I can just offer like some of my musings along the way. So on the one hand, what the heck was going on with the first assassination attempt on live TV? And also, I believe that was like the first time he was on live TV in a while. And so like that also seemed to be kind of a
The
coincidence.
fact that CNN was covering it,
Yeah. But on the other hand, I'm going to be like, I could see like the deep state saying, give us some credit here. If we wanted to take
if
him
we
out,
want
he
it
would
to
be,
happen, we would
wouldn't
have
hit
given
his
this kid
ear,
a scope, or
So
or
I don't, but again, on the other hand, though, when you would see after the fact, like all the stuff that happened, and again, for people who don't know or they heard about it vaguely and forgot, I mean, it was pretty incredible. It was stuff like people in the crowd telling the police, "Hey, we saw a guy walking around up on the roof there," and I don't mean, I can understand why, like, a sniper wouldn't have taken that guy out because, oh geez, you just shot the janitor who was checking the belt or something on that AC unit up there, whatever. Right. But at least radioing and saying, yeah, don't let the president take the stage, or I don't know if they called him at that point, if they called him the former president, don't let the hedgehog take the stage or something. You know what I mean? Like that's all it would have taken. So I'm not saying they should have gone and taken the guy out or arrested him, but surely you convey the information that don't let the president take the stage right now because we have this situation, and they didn't do that. So that was just really weird to me. And so, yeah, I for a while was telling people, I would think there's all sorts of stuff they could do to not let him take power if he were really a threat. I mean, there's hundreds of billions of dollars potentially at stake. I will say, on election night, I was like on this group phone call with not like his inner circle, but like people who were literally on the way to Mar-a-Lago. Okay, so I won't say who they were, but it was people that were of that level of entry, and big names, and they were just matter of factly saying all these ways that they thought the Democrats had to produce fake ballots. And so they were saying if he wins officially, then he won in a landslide.
Right.
So they were,
Right.
I think, again, I didn't independently vet everything. I didn't cross-examine these people, but they were serious people, not just, throwing around stuff on the internet. Like they, I believe if I had challenged them, they could have given me reasons for why they were saying what they were saying. And their view was once he won, that it was just, it wasn't close enough for them to try to steal it.
That's my sense too.
So, for what that's worth, I guess one last thing I'll say is, I've said this, maybe this is just too obvious, but you know how like people who are libertarian types that certainly like Trump a lot more than they liked Kamala Harris. So they were supporting him in that sense.
Yeah.
And then they just kept getting so, Trump, don't you understand? Some of these people you're nominating, they're the same people that screwed you last time. Why can't you learn? And we're saying, do you think the deep state's going to let him win, or are they going to kill him? And I'm saying maybe those two things are related. Maybe it's not that Trump didn't realize what happened last time and he's a complete moron and that's how he got elected president twice. Maybe he understands full well the forces arrayed against him, perhaps even better than the critics. And he realized, like, yeah, I can't do all this. I'm going to have Doge. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. But no, I'm not going to make them think I'm turning off, the military funding. And that was the compromise so that he's allowed to be elected. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. My sense of that first shooting where he got, the first attempt where he got shot in the ear is that was mostly just feckless government employees, although I do have questions. But even if that was a plot, him and the goofball at the golf course with the rifle and the 4 lawsuits that tried to take him out, even the Russia collusion thing, it all seemed a little toothless and feckless and uncoordinated. It just seems weird. I mean, my co-host at Heyman Nature here, Tyrone, he predicted that I'd never seen him, but it turns out I'm just surprised. It makes me wonder. Maybe you're right, and he took Adelson's widow's money and he aligned himself with Israel, and so the most powerful of the deep state oligarchs are just going to let him be. Maybe that's all it was. I don't know.
I think there's another element too. I think. I don't know enough, and I know the way, if I had enough time and it really mattered, I could go and collect enough data to know whether this is just my hunch or not, or if this bears up. But I was surprised when Kamala got the nomination about how many negative pieces, like the New York Times and big things, were running against her. And I wondered, was it because they really didn't want her to be the candidate? And that's why when Biden had to step down, there was a period, I don't remember now how long it was. It wasn't too long, but there was a period where there was an open question about who's the candidate going to be. Is it going to be Newsom? Is it going to be the lady from Michigan? I forget her name. And people would occasionally say Kamala, but everyone's kind of like, Kamala. And then it was really only because I think her people let it be known, if you try to just skip over me, we're going to say you're all racist and sexist. So don't do that. And they were like, okay.
Yeah, the Michigan lady.
I think there was resentment. Was it Granholm or my?
No, it's Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah. So
I believe
there was like resentment. Like I feel like the machine was kind of forced to run her when they knew, no, you're a crappy candidate, and we might lose to Trump if we run you. We could just pick up anybody else and we'd be fine. But because you're going to be, it's all got to be about you. And so I think there was resentment. And so that I think partly too, that could have been, like, are we going to make his plane crash so that Kamala can be the next president? You know what I mean? Like, and also, like, I think a lot of those people must have been really angry at the Bidens, just how corrupt and just naked and You know what I mean? And just even the insiders who were covering for him. So I don't think it's that the entire Democratic machine was all in on it. I think there were varying levels, and I think there must have been a lot of like, "Are you guys kidding me? Was this bad?" And so I think at some point there might be a thing, but no, I'm not gonna, have a coup against Trump when we just had a coup against Biden. One coup per cycle is where I draw the line.
It's a little awkward. Yeah, my remembrance of that is that the window you're talking about was about 2 or 3 days, and it looked like at least the Obama portion of whoever controls the DNC was rooting for an open primary and getting somebody like Whitmer or Newsom or whoever. And it looked like the team was sort of behind Kamala, because in my view, Hillary kind of controls Kamala. I think it was her backers that were supporting her in 2020. Or at least that's what I remember from back then. And then, very quickly, Kamala Harris let it be known that you're not bypassing me in this woke identitarian climate. You're gonna get blown away if you try that.
Yeah. So, like, for example, when she was floating the stuff of like the anti-price gouging stuff.
Yeah.
And there were, it wasn't an editorial, but like, I think it was the New York Times ran an op-ed from someone that, Kamala is against price gouging, but, a lot of economists say this could backfire or whatever. I don't remember the exact thing, but it wasn't the Wall Street Journal. It was like the New York Times and some other things. And I was just surprised that they were running that. And, and I had some of my more center left Twitter followers, when I was saying that in real time, were pushing back against me like, no, Bob, this is just because you live in Rush Limbaugh land or something, and you think it's all the Democratic media. No, we have disagreements all the time, and you're just an idiot, and okay, maybe. But I did think that was weird, and I wondered, was there some, and it could also just be maybe they were afraid she would be a little too radical, and maybe, she would be too Bernie Sanders-esque or something. I don't know, but for whatever reason, I got the sense that maybe some of the powerful people in the Democratic establishment weren't happy with her, and they kind of had to go along with it. But we're pulling their punches at the end there, and certainly we're not going to, again, like I say, have the military accidentally shoot down Trump's plane.
Yeah. So let's talk about as Biden is going out the door, he's issued an unprecedented number of pardons. I'm looking at a little chart here. Presidential pardons over the years, and Biden's like over 7,500, and the nearest closest one is Harry S. Truman at around 2,000, and Barack Obama's about the same. So
he led for a bunch of actual communists.
I mean, maybe, who knows? And
this is really just going to rip the country apart. Did they give atomic secrets to the Soviets? Yes, but
who among us has not made a few oopsies? And most of those people are nonviolent federal drug convictions, I believe. But it sure looks like he's doing this whole huge number in order to try and possibly run cover for the fact that not only is he pardoned his son for an 11-year period going all the way back to about 2014 by curious coincidence, but also his entire family, his brother and everybody, and General Milley, and one Dr. Anthony Fauci, who and the J6 committee. I mean, these are some damning admissions of guilt as far as I'm concerned. What do you think about that?
I think before asking me, we should hear someone weigh in who's got experience as a public servant on that question of preemptive pardons, particularly for the involved family members.
If you're going to bring somebody to the show, Bob, I hope it's somebody really ethical and smart. I mean, like maybe a former congressman turned senator, someone powerful like that.
Someone whose first name is yours?
Oh, there can be only one.
Here we go.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon?
By the way, I should give context. This is in December 2020, where Joy Reid is asking Adam Schiff this, and obviously he's talking about
as Donald Trump goes out the door. What kind of a person would possibly ever consider issuing a preemptive pardon?
Yeah. So I'm sure Schiff here will give a lot of nuance.
And they're an innocent person.
But no, I think that it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with, but also it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family. This is the nature of those the president has surrounded himself with, including his family. And that is, it's been essentially a den of thieves environment. And so I think the president used this as his way of trying to protect those that have protected him.
So there you have it. He's never heard of such a thing, of pardon, giving a preemptive pardon to someone who's innocent, because why would you even need to do that? And if it involves family members, that's kind of a clincher, and it's a den of thieves. I'm
sure Joy Reid is immediately going to find Adam Schiff and get a follow-up question answered, right?
Yes. Now, folks, in case you don't get it, and I don't know how much on my screen you can see it, I know someone listening to the audio only, that Schiff was also a recipient of one of these blanket preemptive pardons from Biden on his way out. So.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Oh, yeah,
for all the things he said after he went into the skiff and saw all the the evidence of the Russia collusion and came out and told the oh my goodness.
So, yes.
The Biden crime family's tentacles reach out far and wide.
So how do you want to, okay, so I think let me mention, I think they did Trump a favor by giving it to Fauci, because I don't think Trump was going to go after Fauci. For one thing, wouldn't it be easy enough for Fauci to say, well, then why didn't you just fire me?
Right.
That's kind of a, kill shot. And then, at least rhetorically or whatever. So there's that element. But also, just, again, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, maybe it's because he's a wimp. Maybe it's because he knows there's so much I can get away with. And, hey, if we want to cut government spending by $200 billion or whatever, we can push through this and we can get a tax cut. We can do it. I can maybe pardon some January, but there's no way I can do X, Y, and Z. And going after Fauci was one of the things that he just realized that's not worth it. For whatever reason, my sense was, if I had to guess, I don't think Trump was going to push for him to be prosecuted. And so I think Biden actually did Trump a favor, that now Trump can say, well, he got pardoned. What can I do?
I agree. In my algorithm, when these pardons got revealed, everyone was furious because they were expecting a fire retribution once Trump got into office. And I think that's just all wrong. I think we should view these, just as you said, as clear wins, because I think it's just, even if Trump was willing, which I doubt, I don't think he'd be able to get the kind of prosecutions through and, jailing people that we'd all like to see. So and I'm also not thrilled with the idea of quid pro quo retribution, political prosecution. I think it'd be bad if we started to devolve into this Hatfield and McCoy sort of thing. And so when you get a preemptive pardon like this, it's just such a clear admission of guilt. I think the public just gets it. You'd have to be a diehard MSNBC viewer not to see what this obviously is. He pardons his kids, so we can't get to him. He pardons his whole family. Then he pardons, Fauci and Milley and, the J6 committee. It looks like they destroyed evidence. There are crimes being committed. I think seeing these pardons come out is the best example of proving the case to the public that you're going to get. And if those hadn't come out, I think we'd be mired in a legal, convoluted battles, and we wouldn't be able to move forward as a country. So I think this was great.
Yeah, and what I said, I think it was with Hunter. I think when that one came out, I said, I think, and I know we're going to get to this in a minute, or at some point in this episode, I said, just take this. This is fine. Like, at this point, once his dad's out of power, Hunter Biden can't, he's not going to raise a bunch of money from willing foreign, whatever you want to call them, bribers and stuff like that. And I think I made it some, like, if he wants to get hookers and crap, he's got to do it the old fashioned way or something like that. But beyond that, I was just viewing it as like a hostage exchange. Like, yeah, good. Like let's let them pardon their people. So now Trump has more political cover to pardon like Ross Ulbricht and the January 6 people, and it'll be harder for the Democrats to scream bloody murder if Biden just pardons a ton of people too. And so like, I would much rather get our people out of prison than, gloat over being able to send these guys in the slammer, as it were.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We get quote unquote our people out without much protest. And again, I just think, we're trying to clean the halls of power, as it were. And how do you get the justice system to go against so many people that are so instrumental in the functioning of the justice system? It's bloody carnage. And again, it'll open up political prosecutions every single time that the political party in charge changes hands. That's terrible. Unless you're, trying to, you're a collapsitarian and you just want the system destroyed because it's unholy. And, I get that a little bit, but I don't agree.
Yeah, so I agree with you both, like tactically and ethically or morally, that I think you're right. If it really were that, oh no, every time one faction comes to power, they just slaughter their enemies.
Yeah.
Then that would make the outcome of the quote election all the more important.
Yeah.
So they would just be even more, dirty-handed tactics and more crimes or whatever to ensure
more bullets flying through the air at public speaking events.
Yeah. Like, to realize, oh no, it's not just that we're not going to get the tax policy we want, but a bunch of us are going to prison if these people win. Like, I think that might get you satisfaction. Like, well, yeah, they should go to prison. It's like, okay, but think 2 and 3 steps ahead, and it's just going to keep, like you say, a tit for tat, just going to keep getting worse, be an arms race. So there's that element. I mean, for all the reasons that, standard libertarian rhetoric of, hey, if we just devolve power from Washington, D.C., you wouldn't care as much about who the next president was. So it's just, if you've ever said that in your life, then how can you really pine for taking all of our enemies and throwing them in prison? Because that's, so there's that element. And then, as far as like the logic, I don't know if you ever thought much about it, but like, why do we have this? Is it a good part of our system that the executive, like the stories of the guys, on death row and his family's hoping the governor gives the last minute call. And like, when I was a kid, I used to wonder, like, that's kind of weird that the governor can do that. I mean, if the guy's a convicted murderer, like, how can the governor just say, no, don't, you know what I mean? And anyway, like, it may not necessarily be that they free him. They just don't send him to the chair or whatever. But anyway, as an anarcho-capitalist, I think the right way to think about it is to say, push to its logical conclusion, if the executive just pardoned everybody preemptively, then we would have anarcho-capitalism. Because you'd just effectively be saying, the state is not allowed to prosecute anybody.
So you're saying in the last actions of the Biden presidency, we're getting 1 or 2 inches closer to anarchy?
That's what I'm saying.
We're winning. This is what winning looks like.
And just to connect it, like that was my take. I don't know if you saw it, Adam, but the movie The Purge, I think there were sequels too. And so my take on that was,
only 364 more days to go.
Right, exactly. But even just the one off, like some people were trying to, some tongue in cheek and some were serious about, oh, would you like this movie, Bob? And you get your anarchy for one day. That doesn't look too good, right? And so one thing, I don't want to spoil it, but as people watch more of the movies, you see the government was pushing the violence, you know what I mean? Like, because it wasn't working the way we wanted. So anyway, so there's that element that even the people making the movie, the point was not anarchy, it doesn't work. It was the government really sucks. But beyond that, people weren't being imaginative. If that was really up and running, then there could be Rothbardian defense agencies that would only operate 1 day a year. And they could have reputation for, so in other words, some guy comes in and kills, your family or something on the purge. So the government's not going to punish him, but the defense agent can say, no, because you are part of our service or because you come and present us evidence and we realize like, that was totally uncalled for. That was immoral, even though it was technically legal that night. Don't worry, next year on that day, when we won't suffer consequences from the state, we'll go take all those people out and we'll build up a whole army and go and do it. And, so long as the government didn't like punish you for having contracts to kick in, you know what I mean? So the only way you could knock that down would be if the state technically did prosecute people for stuff that was consummated on the purge nights, but that's supposed to be the whole point, that they can't do that. So it's not like, oh yeah, you get away with it that night, but then they prosecute you for murder the next day. Like, no, that's not how it works. It's supposed to be anything you do that night is fine. And so as long as like contracts and stuff you sign just says, okay, 1 year from now, we agree, here's some gold coins, and if anybody touches you, then we'll take those people out in 365 days. Then that would work, so that the chaos of the purge night would quickly go away because private defense agencies would arise. I'm saying if people actually believe this is how the system was going to be going forward. So anyway,
I have it on
just
good
saying.
authority that the plot of the purge was that there was a boondoggle given to the company that made those automated steel sliding shutters. When you hit the button, it's just all corruption.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Speaking of enormous executive power and corruption and whatnot, Trump just signed a couple hundred executive orders right after he got sworn in. Did you get a look at the list?
I mean, I was seeing some stuff, but we've had we had a snow day and kids are at home because of the holiday. So no, to answer your question, I was mostly had kids climbing on me.
Well, I can bang through a couple. Just so people know, he pardoned about 1,500 of the people, the J6 people, the people who, quote unquote, stormed the Capitol in 2021.
A logistical question. I mean, I've been at book signing events. How does that? He doesn't sign six. Is it like this executive order pardons these 1,000 people and he signs it once?
Yeah, he sat in a little desk right there in the area where he got sworn in and started pulling out these binders with executive orders and signing them. And I think it was just one, for all 1,500. He didn't have to sign 1,500.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then another one rescinded 78 of Joe Biden's executive orders. I don't know the details on those exactly, but and then one for the video people, the one I'm pointing to here that is on my mind. Donald Trump came to our Libertarian Party convention in May in Washington, D.C. and promised to free Ross Ulbricht, and we've been waiting for him to do that. I have it on good authority that the paperwork's already done, and that Ross, in fact, has his bags packed, and that order's to be signed tomorrow.
So he's like
according to Trump,
Or no, he's not like Private Santiago.
No.
He was leaving the next day?
He was leaving the next day on a flight? Unlike Santiago, his bags were definitely all packed. And yeah, in fact, Trump is saying this isn't day one. Don't worry. This is only day a half. Tomorrow's day one.
Okay. So again, folks, Adam and I are in the awkward spot where we're recording this Monday night, January 20th.
And this comes out on Thursday. This will either have happened and I'm right or it won't, and we're all a bunch of dummies.
We would have the option. We could just snip this out. Be like, oh yeah, we didn't fall for that. What are you talking about?
Or just burn the entire episode.
Yeah.
He did a bunch of other stuff. Let's see. One that's
let me just say, not to go over that too lightly and to make it glib. So again, I'm like, I'm the kind of, when I was younger, I wouldn't even like think about Christmas presents. I would just try not to think about it because the anticipation was too much, and then I would just wake up Christmas morning and be awesome. So when that happens, I'm going to be overjoyed and like everything else is gravy. But I want to hear it officially. So I hope you're right, and you're saying you got these inside stores and that there's reasons because he wants the markets to be open and blah blah blah. So I get it.
I think the reason it got pushed,
it to be official, and I can just be like, oh, thank God.
I do too. I think the reason it was tomorrow is because Ross's conviction has a lot to do with the feds persecuting people who were transacting in Bitcoin. And he also has some other executive orders that are crypto related. They're not secrets. He's been announcing these things on the campaign trail. And I think that he wanted these things to all happen on a day where the market is open, so it wouldn't look like, insider trading. I don't know. I don't know what the reason. I'm speculating, but
right.
I think that's the reason that it was supposed to happen tomorrow. And I'm with you. I met Lynn Ulbricht, Ross's mother, I think it was 2017 on the Contra cruise. And, that story just broke my heart. This kid's been in jail for over 11 years now, and it's just a travesty. I really hope he gets out.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, for Lynn, those I had her on the Bob Murphy show. Tom and I, gave her a platform on the Contra cruise to let people. It was just, it'd be like, yeah, if that happened to your kid, and you're a good parent, what would you do? You would do what she did. I mean, she basically, her
She
life has
moved
been,
heaven and earth
yeah,
for 11 years to get this guy, to get her kid out, and it looks like it's going to happen. After receiving 2 back-to-back life sentences plus 40 years, just in case.
yep.
Just a travesty.
Okay. Well, like I say, it's, I'm almost, anyway, when that is official, I'm going to just be so happy.
Literally, folks, if it doesn't happen, we might just have to junk this whole episode. So I hope you get to hear it, because we'll be too busy crying. He passed signed an executive order, basically ending the trans insanity, at least as far as the federal government is concerned.
Was that the thing where defining what a woman was? Because I saw some people saying Matt Walsh will be happy for this one.
It means in literally every domain that the federal government touches, there is only 2 sexes, 2 genders, man and woman. Woman is defined as adult human female. Mm-hmm. It's really good news. That you won't be able to house men in women's prison just because they say they're a woman. I mean, if you haven't been keeping track, folks, there's just been a lot of lunacy around this trans stuff that's really tragic.
Yeah, just to pull on that thread, I mean, again, this isn't like an exaggeration and we're saying, oh, what next? Like, this is literally happening where there are humans who have, a Frank. And
Frank and Beans.
Yes. And they go commit sexual crimes. And They are convicted.
Yes.
They go to prison and then they declare, oh, I'm a woman. You should house me with female inmates. And the prison authorities say, oh, okay, we wouldn't want to discriminate against you. And they do it. I don't know how many cases there have been, but it's more than 0.
I will link to a couple cases in Minnesota that I wrote about at HeymanNature.substack.com. And yeah, this is happening. That was a state prison. I'm not sure exactly what the federal implications are, but this is happening, and it's a travesty.
Yeah, and just on that, like, I can understand. I disagree strongly with, but I can understand somebody who would say, oh, just because of this vague fear, some kid that's 15 and is genuinely a woman, a girl trapped in a boy's body should be able to go to the appropriate bathroom okay. Again, I disagree with that, but even so, it's not, the one area where you would want to lean on the side of the person's just saying it and should not be trusted is a convicted sex offender. When you try to say like, oh, come on, I don't think we should really make the rules based on just some bad actor. You should inside of a prison with convicted sex offenders. Like, those are the last people you should say, oh, well, as long as you, wait a minute, are you really a woman? Like for real? Like, you're not just pulling her leg because you want to go rape some more women? No, really a woman. Okay. But
you can certainly imagine,
if we catch you lying, you're going to be in big trouble.
You can certainly imagine marginal cases where you find a sympathetic person and your heart would pull for them a little bit. But these are not the cases we're talking about. And when people push back on me, I just say, I'm never going to convince you, but remember, as a civilization, we carved out separate spaces for women. Bathrooms and prisons, unfortunately, sports. We carved out all these spaces to keep women separate from men for a reason. And if that was a good reason, then you cannot let men violate those spaces, or you're doing something horrible to women and women's rights, in my opinion.
Yeah. And again, and also too, it would take some time. Like, the people who are in favor of allowing, trans athletes to participate and says, and I think part of it is they're saying, oh, this is just some fake fear about, oh, why wouldn't some mediocre guy just declare himself a woman so he could get the gold medal? You know what I mean? But I think partly what would have held that back up till this point, even though it is happening, is just the stigma.
Right.
That if you were, some guy that was consistently coming in 13th or something in the men's relay or whatever the event is, and you thought, no, I could probably take number one if I just said I was a girl. Like, okay, but is that worth, like a lot of your friends would stop hanging out with you and stuff and be like, are you serious, man? You know what I mean? So they would sort of take the sweetness away from getting the first place award. So whereas if over time it just becomes more normalized, then that
not only normalized, celebrated.
Right.
You
that
can
negative
gain
stigma would fade. And so after a while, like in those types of sport, except for like gymnastics or something, it would just be biological males would dominate everything. And like young girls would just know there's no point. Because not only you're not going to win, you might get the crap kicked out of you, depending on what event we're talking about.
Or your face broken in the case of women's volleyball. I mean, there's a team in California somewhere that, I mean, our women's volleyball team up in Reno got in trouble because they just refused to play against this team where there's this guy just smashing the ball down and breaking girls' faces. It's gross. But we should probably move on because the guy did sign like 200 of these things.
Yeah. So again, I mean, that's the thing with Trump, and this sort of illustrates that for all of it. How could anybody vote for this guy? I mean, and it's like, because he's at least willing to say, yeah, men can't say they're women and be housed with female inmates when they're rapists. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm sorry that it took Donald Trump to do that. Like, yeah, it would be better if it was Rand Paul or something, but
can you imagine, if you went to sleep 30 years ago and then Rip Van Winkle, like you woke up today and found out that one of the biggest arguments of the presidency or society is like, what is a woman? What does it even mean? Yeah. A friend of mine said the society that we're in is like a video game and it's set on easy mode and we're still losing.
That's good.
We can't get the most basic things correct. All right, so Trump signed a couple more EOs. There's some Doge ones, freezing federal regulations, nothing new, and freezing federal hiring. The military was exempted. He's bringing back all the federal workers. Apparently, most of them, or a huge number of them, still work remotely after COVID. So he's demanding that all of them have to come back into the office in person. And I assume that's part of the firing strategy, since some people just won't, right?
Yeah, right. Probably, yeah, because they've taken 3 other jobs in the meantime.
Right, or moved out of state. I mean,
other ones pay more, yeah.
Sold the car. I don't need this anymore.
Been in Venezuela for 2 years.
There's one directing every federal department and agency to address the ongoing cost of living crisis. I don't know what that's about. He withdrew us again from the feckless Paris Climate Accords.
By the way, the first timer, I can't express how much even now, this is the second time he's done the first time in, I just couldn't believe, because that was my,
me too.
I was in energy economics and stuff like that. And just like the George W. Bush administration did so much of that crap about the renewable fuel standards and this, and you know what I mean? Like it was, and that was, the Texas oil man, right winger.
Right.
And so for Trump to come in and actually do that, like it was, his actions on that energy stuff and climate change matched his rhetoric, whereas a lot of the other stuff, that's not how it panned out. But anyway, so.
Well, again, for all of Trump's faults, he's not part of this agenda, whatever it is, the quote unquote regime, the globalists, if you are adopting that Alex Jones frame or whatever. Speaking of which, he signed one today withdrawing us from the World Health Organization. And as much as I'm a big fan of health, I don't think we should be a part of that thing. That's not working in our interest in the slightest.
Right, just like I'm in favor of energy and transportation too. And again, folks, maybe we're nuts, but if you were part of a small elite that were literally trying to take over planet Earth, you would like things that allowed you to get your tentacles into transportation and energy and health initiatives, education. So yeah, you'd like to harmonize all the policies so that all the major governments were on board and doing the same thing.
Sensible regulations. And why wouldn't you streamline it for worldwide government? What do you want? Anarchy? Oh yeah, we do. He signed one restoring free speech and eliminating government censorship. I don't know the details, but I think I like it. Oh, and he even signed one to end government weaponization against political opponents. Siri screwed me up there. Against political opponents. Oh, here's one that we're probably not too happy about. he designated Mexico's drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which means, I believe, legally, the military can just go in and nuke them if they want to, if he wants them to.
Do you know what that's going to do to the price of my cocaine?
I mean, if you didn't stock up before the Trump presidency, I don't know. I can only blame you here.
Let me just tell you, folks, supply curve shifts left. You do the math.
All right. So maybe that one is.
Was the Gulf of Mexico, was that real? Did he really rename it? Or is that a joke?
I don't believe he signed one renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I assume he's kidding, but I don't know.
It's funny that we actually don't know.
I don't know. I mean, he says things. Can he just do that? I mean, is that something that he can just declare? Is that a thing? Is it like renaming Mount McKinley to Mount Denali or whatever and back again? Is it like that?
I mean, the true answer is I don't know.
I don't either.
Since, I mean, the U.S. doesn't own that, right? Or at least you got to go out and
who owns the Gulf? I don't know. Maybe you have to.
I thought Mexico did because it's the Gulf of Mexico, and that's
maybe
his
you
point.
have to send special forces to every atlas maker and every globe maker.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm doing grammar. I'm correcting my grammar as we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, he has to send the military in, special forces to literally change every atlas.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one.
Because if they called it Mexico's Gulf, that would be clear. So if it's the Gulf of Mexico, that does denote that it is theirs. And I think he just wants to be clear.
You don't own that, guys.
We could call it the Gulf near Mexico or Gulf off Mexico. That could be.
I mean, I figure we'll just leave it alone until we nuke the cartels, and then we'll be in a position of strength to negotiate this matter. Trump signed one revoking the security clearance of the, quote, 51 intelligence agents who lied about Hunter's laptop or were deliberately deceptive when speaking about whether the Hunter's laptop had all the signs, quote unquote, of Russian disinformation. So that's good.
I wish I could remember, because there was one of those guys that was on a talk, like, one of the cable news network things, and not CNN, but it's one of those shows, and the host was pushing him. Like, they played a clip of what the guy had said, before it came out that it was legit, the laptop. And then they kind of asked him to respond. It's like, so what do you say to that? I wish I could remember the exact, but he just doubled down. He was like, no, what I said was perfectly factual. I said it had all the earmarks of Russian. It did.
If I recall correctly, that was Clapper, and it was marvelous.
I'm not denying that Clapper may have. The one I heard was definitely not Clapper, because I would remember. It was some guy whose name I didn't know.
Just some guy, okay.
Yeah, but he was one. I think he's probably one of those 51 you just mentioned. So he had been making the rounds beforehand, telling everybody, no, this has all the signs of Russian disinformation, blah, 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 blah. And then after it blew up in their face, they had him back on, and he was just, no, I didn't say anything wrong. He was like wagging his finger at the host, like, apparently you never studied grammar, or you know what I mean? Like,
honestly, what we said, what the 51 of us said was so innocuous, I can't even believe you guys ran with it and even mentioned it in the news. I mean, we basically said nothing.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, my peanut butter sandwich has all the hallmarks of being made in Russia too. I mean, it's got two pieces of bread, peanut butter in between. All right, here's a big one, a controversial one. This is immigration. He must have signed a dozen specific EOs about immigration, ending the mass parole programs, reinstating the policy that people have to remain on the Mexico side while they're awaiting asylum, rather than just being released into the U.S. for a court date years in the future.
Which is just nutty.
It's just nutty. Yeah.
I mean, I understand like a Brian Kaplan case for open borders.
Sure,
or near open. Like, I get it. But given what the policy is, and you just let people come in and just release them, and okay, now you make sure you're back in Phoenix 18 months from now, or
especially
in violation.
Especially when we're not talking about just the organic migration of people because of exigent circumstances and supply and demand. It's not like that. We've got these weird NGOs, paying for people to travel from all sorts of places, not even just South America, and just flooding into the country where they can do all sorts of weird things and abuse the social safety net, and
vote for Democrats
and vote for except apparently that appears to be not working for the DNC, if that really was their dastardly plan turns out as far as the South Americans go, they're kind of Christian and conservative.
That
Weird.
would be funny if that's what
Weird,
put Trump
right?
over the edge. Yeah.
So he's ending catch and release, and then don't quote me. It's just something I saw on the interwebs, but I heard one of them was to end birthright citizenship. Can he do that?
It's in the Constitution, right? Or is
It's one of the amendments. Yeah, I think I don't know. Maybe my list is flawed, but this one was thrown in there. I don't think he can do that.
Well, if Biden's allowed to pass a constitutional amendment through Twitter, I don't see why.
That's right. We'll just make it the 29th. Or get it
I
back.
have believed for a long time that it's wrong to give citizenship to someone who's been born here. So therefore,
And also, the state of Virginia exists. Therefore, it's now the law of the land. Do you want to talk about? Well, what do you want to talk about next? Let me pause.
Let's talk about Elon. Nazi salute.
I can't believe they ran with that and called that thing a Nazi salute. Do you have a video of it?
I do, but I'm gonna take a contrarian approach.
Sweet.
Okay, now let me engage in this is going to take some audience participation, and you're the audience. Now, let me preface this, Adam, by saying, number one, I'm not homosexual, and number two, I know you're married, and I'm not a homewrecker. Okay, so here I'm going to ask you to do something, but this is for science.
Should I dull my senses before watching the?
It's okay. No, blow me a kiss. Okay. Did you see what you just did with your hand?
Oh, my Lord. Did I extend it slightly above horizontally? And,
okay, but in particular, your palm was upward as you extended it.
Sure.
Because if you turned your hand so your palm was facing down, the kiss wouldn't reach me. It would fall on the floor.
Yeah, you got to lob it.
Right. So likewise, if you were trying to extend your heartfelt gratitude from your chest to the crowd, your palm would be facing up as you swept your hand out. All right, so let's watch Elon and see how he did it. Because the defense, of course, folks, is that what are you talking about? It wasn't a Nazi, so he was just... So let's just watch this, and you saw what Adam just did when he didn't know why I was asking him. And I'll look at Elon's hand and see if Elon, who knows about payload delivery, he knows how to get cargo to the moon.
He does.
So suppose what Elon's trying to do here is transmit his heartfult gratitude to the crowd.
He has just on the spot designed a launch system for his heartfelt gratitude to be delivered to the crowd.
Now, I know people are just, folks, don't worry. It's me. I'm going to tie this all together, but I'm just saying, go with me on this one. We're going to investigate this hypothesis. Is Elon trying to convey his heart to the crowd? Given what you just saw Adam do.
Let's analyze the video.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart.
Okay. So Elon's heart is on the floor 6 feet in front of him. He did it front, and he turned around and did it again. So it's not just like, well, it's kind of a one-off awkward. All right. So I think that is not what any natural, normal body motion would be if you were just trying to like give your heart to the crowd. So now you're going to say, what are you saying, Bob? He's a Nazi and he was secret. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's Elon Musk. He likes to be the center of attention. And for an hour and a half, everybody on Trump's biggest night was talking about Elon and not talking about Trump. And he has the plausible deniability. Trump can't get mad at him because he goes, what? I was thanking the crowd for voting for you. What? And meanwhile, he's laughing his butt off. And the last thing I'll say is, I went and I was tweeting this, as this was going down and saying, guys, I really think, he's trolling you. He's getting his enemies to do exactly what he knew they would, and all of his defenders to come out and defend him, and he's laughing his ass off. And then I found some Business Insider things saying Elon surprising childish behavior on Twitter, and from tweets involving 69 and 420 and talking about titter. And then he's there in his cosplay suit where he's dressed up like a superhero or whatever. And so I think, there's three possibilities. One is he's a secret Nazi and he was just, signaling to, hail Hitler. I don't think that's plausible. Two is he was just trying to blow a kiss, and I don't think that's plausible for the reasons I said. And 3, I agree it's a stretch, but that's where the evidence leads us that he was trolling. Can I do one more
Let
thing?
me
What?
allow me to retort.
Okay.
I agree. I don't think Elon Musk is a secret Nazi, and I do believe that the throwing your heart's eternal feeling out towards the crowd doesn't make much sense based on the body language. And I love the 4D chess theory you just promoted, but I think there's a different one.
Okay.
And I responded with it to you on Twitter, now X. I think Elon Musk was signaling that we are actually in the declining embers of the Roman Empire. So he gave us a Roman Praetorian Guard Centurion salute right there on the stage twice. I mean, connect the dots, people. We are Rome.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
I would also accept that as an answer. Like, I think you can merge what I said and what you said. But I think
actually,
because the other thing too is part of my case. Just to when he can, if you watch the 2 minutes before and after, it wasn't like an eloquent speech. You know what I mean? So when he went out there, all he had to remember is, I got to show enthusiasm, and I'm doing my Nazi salute that everyone's going to talk about for the next news cycle.
I don't think it was that well thought out. I mean, Elon's on the spectrum by his own admission, and I think he was just excited, and he did this clumsy, weird thing in front of a crowd because he's a billionaire, and why not?
He did it one way. He turned around and did it again. That I'm just.
He loved the people behind him just as much as the people in front of him.
I like your theory that, again, I think he could think that was funny. Let me just remind people about, because part of this too is, it might not be that Trump is mad at him. Oh, you're stealing my spotlight. It could be he came back and they were all just laughing their asses off and high-fiving him. You know what I mean? Like
that could easily be too.
And let me, I never saw any investigation into this, but I have one more thing to share with the folks, the good folks at home. This was from the RNC, Republican National Convention of the 2016. Is this showcased, Adam? You got it up?
It is.
Okay. The Republican National Convention for the 2016 election, and this is Melania, telling the people what they can expect from her husband.
If you want someone to fight for you and your country, I can assure you, he's the guy. He will never, ever give up. Never gonna give you up. He will never, ever let you down. Never gonna let you down.
Okay, and at the time when a few people were saying,
did
she
rickroll
the country?
She rickrolled
and was like,
us.
oh no, she's got an accent, and how would she know about Rick Ass? Come on, I don't know. That seemed pretty coincidental to me.
To underscore your theory, you got to remember this guy. I don't think he ever thought he was actually going to win. Not the first time.
Right.
The second time he was clearly angry, but
yeah,
he seems like a guy who might do some trolling and surround himself with some trolls. So you never know.
Yeah. So the Melania thing, I mean, I'm just adding that as extra sauce, but my point with Elon is just watch how Elon conducts himself on Twitter. So I agree with you in the abstract. The world's richest man, or CEO who had a lot to do, and he's got so much he wants to accomplish under. Why would he risk it all by doing a Nazi salute, like knowing how they're going to?
No, he would do that
because it's Elon Musk. Look at all of his tweets day in and day out, and say to yourself, would the world's richest man with all this stuff he's trying to accomplish tweet like that? And no, he wouldn't. Except he does. And so there you go. And maybe the answer is, well, he's the world's richest man, and he's, trying to go to Mars and stuff. And why not?
It is in his very broad, enormous personality.
He leaks pictures. Hey, when I was dating Amber Heard, look what I got her to dress up.
Yeah, he could come up with the idea of intentionally doing something ambiguous like that, and just because you're right.
And I like your Rome angle that he could be like, no, it wasn't a Nazi. I was doing the Rome. I was saying with the decline of Rome. Come on,
it's a twofer. He's efficient. He's an engineer.
Collapsing. Yeah. And again, I just want to stress, he knows how to deliver payloads. He would not think. He would realize you got to keep your palm up, gravity,
Unless it was a fastball. Line drive.
Yeah.
Or going the other way.
No, but it was a shovel pass.
It was a Roman salute. we're almost out of time-ish. Do you want to talk about any of the other things he's sort of vaguely been promising on the campaign trail? Like, we talked about tariffs in another episode. We'll link to that.
Yeah, I mean, people keep hitting that, and again, I agree. If they could completely get rid of income taxes and replace it with a tariff, especially if they reduce federal spending enough such that you could have a balanced budget with just tariffs, that would be awesome. I would take that in a second, but that's not what we're going to get. I think in a realistic sense, I think what you would get is, jacking up tariff rates. And then even if it were dollar for dollar income tax reduction, I'm not sure the interplay might make it worse. I would have to think that through, but anyway, I'm just saying it's what you really wouldn't want to do is jack up tariffs and then have less than a dollar for dollar reduction in income tax rates. And so you still have all the invasiveness of the IRS, the distortions from that, and the tariff. Because the tariff, I think, is more distortionary. It's just the income tax is worse for like Orwellian reasons.
For sure. And he's also playing, I mean, it's not like he talks about reducing spending and ending inflation, but the only thing that is on his list that's on the right side of the ledger is expanding energy production and cutting a whole bunch of regulations. But he's also promised to build us our own North America-sized Iron Dome. That can't work. That's just a boondoggle, obviously. He's promised to rebuild our cities.
What does that mean? It's like a missile defense like Israel has? Is that what that is?
Yeah. First of all, that doesn't work. Second of all, we already tried that boondoggle with Reagan, as they called it Star Wars. So I hope he's kidding, but promising the country to implement an Iron Dome system that would not work. Didn't both Iran and the Yemenis managed to hit Tel Aviv despite their Iron Dome because technology is just, these missiles are blisteringly fast now. Oh, and you can fire them, short range from subs, and the Iron Dome is silly, but it would be very costly. Is my point. He's not talking about things that are. He swears he won't cut Social Security or Medicare or raise retirement age. I don't think he's talked about means testing it either. He said he'd rebuild our cities. I don't know what he means. Maybe it's addressing the crime situation somehow by negotiating with mayors or DAs or something. So he says a bunch of stuff, and I don't know what he actually means. I don't know what he has the power to do. I wish a lot of it was small government, but he's Donald Trump. He's not principled exactly. I don't know what he's going to do. Oh, do you have any insight on other things he said he's interested in doing in various places? Is literally ending the Department of Education. Have you looked at his appointment for for the head of that, or?
Well, not too much. Is that Linda McMahon, or am I getting mixed up?
I think it is, yeah.
Because I have seen people sharing old clips of her. She's a good actress when, like, she's doing stuff with wrestling and
getting slapped in the ring,
right? And like, her kids turn on her, and the announcer's like, "Oh no, someone knew something." So anyway, she can put on a show. That's good. She's got a sense of humor. Say that for her. I will say there was a funny thing. Let me see if I can reconstruct it. It's never as good as if you read my tweets in real time, folks. But some guy said something like, this isn't exactly right, but it was something along the lines of, I can't believe more than half of the country voted for this moron who wants to get rid of the Department of Education. This is the most brain-dead, stupidest thing I've ever seen. That would just cause, our schools to crumble, or, the Department of Education is so important. And I tweeted back something like, but it was under the Department of Education's, regime that all the Trump voters were educated, or something like that, or grew up. And so anyway,
your tweets are very high level.
This tweet was self-defeating.
On
all that stuff. I mean, with you can, whatever statistics you want to use. Off the top of my head, I don't know that this is the key, but I'm pretty sure I've seen things where, literacy, various metrics like the U.S. versus foreign students on math scores and stuff like that. You would be hard pressed to show that the Department of Education is essential, or, just comparing, what did kids in 12th grade know back in this year compared to now, and how much was spent per capita back then versus now. And I think
You
the
can,
issue is not if we just spent a little bit more money on kids, then they could finally learn the time.
if you look at the graphs you're mentioning about spending and the history of test scores over the entire history of the Department of Education, you could easily make the argument that now that Trump has said that nothing involved with the government is supposed to be teaching trans ideology, well, literally now the Department of Education has nothing to do, so we can just go ahead and demolish it. I think that was the only thing it was doing. It wasn't teaching them how to read and write and arithmetic.
Yes, that was certainly the case. And I mean, it was back when let's see, what years would this have been? This would have been 2003 to 2006, right? It was when I was a professor at Hillsdale. And that's, it's like a state school or something. That's an expensive thing that, and that famously didn't take government funding, by the way, too. And so it was, I mean, I would come in after an exam, like a midterm or something, when they had the blue books and they got to write essays, and I would go up to the board and I would write lose and next to it loose and THEIR and THEY''RE, and I would just do a bunch of those. And I would say, guys, forget the economics. You need to know the difference between these words. And I said, because if I'm an employer and I see this on a job application and you don't know the difference, I say either you never read and you don't know the difference, or you do know the difference, but you can't be bothered to get it right. And I said, either way, I don't want to hire you. And the kids were looking at me with a mixture of shock and outrage, like, don't talk to me. This is an economics class, and who are you to judge my right? And anyway, it was just shocking. And this was, like I said, early 2000s. It's probably worse now.
I mean, I think in 1988, my English 101 teacher taught us how to write essays. She did the exact same thing as you did on the blackboard in front of the room after the first submission.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people who graduated from high school and took a test to be able to be admitted into a big university did not know the difference between these very basic words. I want to point out before we wrap that more evidence that this guy right here, Ross Ulbricht, will be freed is that Elon Musk, who is either a troll or telling us about Rome, just tweeted out that Ross will be free. And, he's on the inside too.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
this is going to happen. It's going to happen.
Like he wouldn't have done that unless he knew. Okay. All right. Well, that's great.
All right. Well, this was
now, folks.
wonderful.
If you're seeing this episode, that means it happened, because otherwise Adam and I would just, oh, geez, we lost the footage. Sorry, folks. This is like it'll go the way of the moon telemetry.
And the footage of Jeffrey Epstein's cell during that night when it's all in the same vault with the Ark of the Covenant. All right, this was wonderful. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching or listening to the Bob Murphy Show.
I just want to give a heartfelt to the folks at home. Thank you.
To all the people who only got to listen to that, shame on you. Go watch the video. Thank you, Bob, and we'll catch you next time on Human Nature and the Bob Murphy Show. See you later.